Welcome to the world of science fiction Neon's Alien. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from Neon's Alien universe. The market was full of color and noise. Traders shouted prices. Engines roared in the sky above. Robots zipped by with deliveries, but no one noticed her. She stood at the far edge of the market near a pile of old crates. Her clothes were dusty and torn. Her boots had holes. In her arms, she held a sleeping child wrapped in a thin gray cloth. Her name was Yalara. She was not from this planet, and she was not welcome here. "Please," she whispered to a passing shopkeeper. "I just need work." The man didn't stop. He didn't even look at her. Another merchant passed, a tall alien woman with heavy jewelry. "I can clean," Yalara said softly. "Repair, carry loads, anything." The woman wrinkled her nose. "Go beg somewhere else, widow." Yalara stepped back. Her child stirred in her arms, coughing quietly. The noise of the crowd felt louder now. The heat of the suns beat down on her shoulders. Her legs were tired, her throat dry. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, but she couldn't stop, not for herself. For her son. She looked down at the child. His name was Lem. He was barely 3 cycles old. His face was thin, his eyes were tired. He hadn't cried in hours, not because he wasn't hungry, because he was too weak. Yalara moved again, shop to shop, stall to stall. She asked softly, politely, but everyone ignored her. Some laughed. One even threw a rotten fruit near her feet. "Get out of here, beggar," he shouted. She picked up the fruit, cleaned the dirt off, and placed it beside her child's cheek as he slept. "I used to be someone," she whispered to herself. "Before the war, before I lost him." Her husband had died during the Tethros uprising. Their home was bombed. Her clan vanished. Now she was just another refugee in a world that didn't care. Just when she was about to give up, when she felt her knees shake and her arms begin to drop, someone stopped. A shadow fell across her and the child. She looked up slowly. It was a human, tall, brown coat, simple clothes, a tool belt around his waist, a bag slung over one shoulder. He had kind eyes and a face that didn't twist with disgust. He spoke. His voice was calm, not loud, not cruel. "You looking for work?" Nodded quickly. "Yes, anything, please." He looked at her child, then back at her. "What can you do?" "I can clean, lift, sort. I've worked with machines before. I learn fast. She looked down. "I just need food for my son." The man didn't speak for a long moment. Then, he said, "Name's Micah. I run a small repair shop near the edge of the quarter." Yalara looked up, eyes wide. "I don't have papers," she said quickly. "No ID. I wasn't accepted by the registry." Micah raised a hand. "I don't care about that." She blinked. He continued, "You help me around the shop. I pay you each day. You feed the kid, that's the deal." She tried to speak, but nothing came. She nodded fast, lips trembling. "Thank you." Micah looked around. "People are staring. Let's go before someone tries to stop us." Yalara adjusted Lem in her arms and followed. The market noise faded behind her. No one else said a word. They didn't care. But she didn't care anymore either. She had found one person who did. At the shop, Micah cleared a space near the back for her to rest. "You can start tomorrow," he said. "For now, rest and feed that little guy." He handed her a sealed food pack and a bottle of water. She stared at it, then at him. She whispered, "I don't know how to repay you." Micah shrugged. "Don't. Just do the job right." Yalara nodded. Tears filled her eyes, but she held them back. She looked down at her sleeping child, then whispered, "We're safe now." By morning, the whispers had already started. "Did you see that human, Micah?" He took in her. "The widow alien, the one with the sick child?" Must have lost his mind. Micah ignored the gossip. He walked through the main street with his tool pack on his back, boots dusty, eyes calm. Behind him, Yalara followed. holding her son Lem, who was finally eating a soft fruit Micah had given her. The child looked better, already. But as they passed the other stalls, people looked away, or worse, they stared. Some laughed, some whispered, others gave cold glares. At the shop, a grumpy alien named Dross, who owned the stall next door, leaned against his post. "Weren't you refugees now?" he sneered. "Thought you had better sense, human." Micah didn't stop walking. "Thought you had better manners, Dross." Dross grunted. "Don't say I didn't warn you. That kind of alien brings bad luck." Yalara flinched. Micah looked back at her. He didn't say anything, just gave her a small nod. It was enough to keep her walking. The shop was simple, a corner station made of old alloy panels, hanging wires, a small power engine, and a worn-out sign that read, "Micah's Mechanics." Inside, tools were stacked neatly. Broken parts lined one wall. The smell of oil and solder filled the air. Micah set down his pack. "All right," he said. "Time to work." He showed Yalara where the tools were kept, how to clean the nozzles, how to reset the circuit boards. She listened carefully. Didn't ask questions. Didn't slow down. She worked hard, fast, even when her hands trembled. She made mistakes, but she learned quickly. Midday, Micah gave her half a ration bar and water. She split the bar in half and gave more to Lem. Micah watched in silence. Later, when he turned his back, she picked up a broken fan he hadn't touched in months and fixed it. He noticed, but didn't say anything. Not yet. By sunset, Yalara's fingers were black with grease and her back ached. But she said nothing. Micah handed her a small pouch with a few credit chips. "Pay for the day," he said. Her eyes widened. "Already?" "I said I'd pay daily." "You worked." She stared at the pouch like it was gold. Then quietly, "Thank you." Micah nodded once. Outside, Dross stood with another shopkeeper. "Giving money to beggars now?" he asked. Loud enough to hear. Micah didn't respond. Yalara stepped back. Micah turned slowly and said loud enough for both men to hear, "She's not a beggar, she's my worker. You got a problem with that?" The two men went quiet. Micah walked back inside. Yalara followed, eyes wide. That evening, as she helped clean the tools, Yalara finally asked, "Why are you doing this?" Micah was wiping oil from a bolt. "Doing what?" "Helping me." He shrugged. "You needed help. I needed help." It made sense. No one else thought so. He looked at her. "Most people are wrong." She stared at him, then said quietly, "I'll do my best." Micah nodded. "I know." Outside, the stars began to show. Yalara sat with her son near the back door, looking up at them. Lem played with a broken screw like it was a toy. Yalara whispered, "Do you see that, little one? Someone finally gave us a chance." She looked back into the workshop. Micah was still there, fixing something by hand. Her eyes softened. She didn't understand humans much, but she knew one thing. This one was different. It started with a cough, small, soft. But Yalara knew the sound too well. She had heard it before, back in the refugee camps, when babies fell ill and no medicine came. Now, her son Lem lay on a folded blanket in the corner of the repair shop. His skin looked pale. His breathing was slower. The fruit Micah gave him yesterday still sat untouched. Yalara wiped his forehead. It felt warm. Too warm. Her chest tightened. Not now. Not when they finally had safety. Not when Micah had given her this chance. She wrapped Lem tighter in his blanket and kissed his cheek, then stood up, put on her work gloves, and walked back into the main shop like nothing was wrong. Micah didn't notice at first. He was bent over a rusted power unit, muttering at a stripped screw. "Hand me the small spanner?" he asked. Yalara passed it to him quickly. Her hands didn't shake. Her face didn't break. But inside, she was falling apart. Every few minutes, she glanced toward Lem. Still coughing. Still too still. She wanted to go to him. Hold him. But what if Micah saw? What if he changed his mind? What if he said, "A sick child, I don't need this"? What if he told them to leave? She couldn't lose this. Not again. So she worked. Harder than ever. Faster than ever. Even as her eyes burned and her heart raced, even as Lem's cough grew louder. Micah looked up once, hearing it. "Is he all right?" Yalara nodded quickly. "Just tired," she said. Micah didn't press. He trusted her. That made it worse. By noon, Lem was burning with fever. Yalara wiped his face and gave him a few sips of water when Micah wasn't looking, but she knew it wasn't enough. He needed rest, real food, heat, and medicine she couldn't afford. That evening, as Micah locked the front gate, he heard it again. A harsh, painful cough. He turned. Lem lay in the corner, shaking. Yalara knelt beside him, whispering something in her language, trying to soothe him. Micah's heart dropped. He stepped closer. Yalara looked up, eyes full of fear. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. He got tired. I didn't mean to. Please don't send us away." Micah held up a hand. "Stop." She froze. "I'm not angry," he said softly. She looked at him, confused. "You're not?" He shook his head. "He's sick." "That's not your fault. But I didn't tell you. You were scared, I get it." He stepped over to Lem and touched the boy's forehead, then looked at her. "He needs help." Yalara nodded silently. Micah walked to the back, came back with a heat pack, clean blanket, and a bottle of liquid medicine. He handed it to her. Her hands shook. You had this all along?" "I keep it for emergencies," he said. "Didn't think I'd need it. Guess I was wrong." She looked at the medicine, then at him. Her voice broke. "I was so afraid you'd throw us out." Micah looked surprised. "I gave you a job, Yalara, not a warning." She wiped her face quickly. "I didn't want to be a burden." Micah sat down beside her and said quietly, "Taking care of your child doesn't make you a burden. It makes you a mother." That night, Lem slept under soft heat, medicine working through his tiny body. Yalara sat beside him, eyes never leaving his face. Micah brought her tea. She accepted it this time, with both hands, and a whisper, "Thank you," for not turning away. Micah looked at her for a long time, then replied, "You're not the only one who's been left behind, Yalara." For the first time since she lost her husband, Yalara didn't feel alone. She wasn't sure what was happening between them, but she knew this. She could finally breathe. The rain hit the metal roof in soft, steady beats. Inside the shop, everything looked normal. But something wasn't. Micah stood at the back corner, kneeling near an old plasma regulator, a heavy, dangerous machine he'd agreed to fix for a mining crew. "This model's unstable," he warned. "We need to be careful." Yalara stood nearby, wiping a cooling rod. Her hands were steadier now. She had been learning quickly. Micah even started trusting her with tools that once stayed locked up. She nodded. "I'll be careful." But the machine wasn't, and neither of them saw the crack in the energy coil. Little Lem sat behind them, drawing on a scrapboard with a burnt stylus. He laughed softly as he drew strange shapes only a child could understand. Yalara smiled, until the machine beeped. Once, then again, Micah leaned closer. "That's not right." Suddenly, a red light blinked, then another, then, boom, the machine exploded with a flash of heat and smoke. Micah shouted, "Get back!" Yalara didn't think. She grabbed Lem and turned, but she was too slow. A metal piece flew toward her. She saw it in slow motion. Then, Micah jumped. He shoved her out of the way. The metal slammed into his shoulder instead. They fell hard to the ground. The room filled with black smoke. Lem screamed. Micah groaned in pain. Blood dripped from his arm. Yalara blinked through the haze and pulled Lem close to her chest. Then she crawled toward Micah. "Stay still," she said, voice shaking. He coughed. You okay? You saved us, she whispered. He tried to smile. I told you I'm good at stupid things. It took minutes for the smoke to clear. Yalara dragged Micah toward the door, one hand still holding Lem. Outside, the rain hit her face like needles. But she didn't stop. She laid Micah down beneath the awning and checked his wound. Deep, but not fatal. Still, he was bleeding badly. She tore cloth from her sleeve and pressed it against his arm. He hissed. You're not trained for this. I'm a mother, she said. I learn fast. The rain poured around them. Lem sat quietly under Yalara's coat, holding her hand. Micah looked up at her through tired eyes. You didn't run. She frowned. Run? When the machine blew, you didn't leave me. Yalara stared at him, then said without blinking, neither did you. She stayed by his side all night. She made a splint for his shoulder, cleaned the wound with water, fed him warm broth from the supply shelf. When he finally fell asleep, she leaned back and held Lem close. The shop was quiet now, but something had changed forever. In the morning, Dross from the next stall walked by and saw the damage. What happened? He asked. Yalara was sweeping broken glass from the floor. Micah sat nearby, arm wrapped in a sling. She answered calmly, we had a malfunction. Dross sniffed. Told you something like this would happen. Micah raised an eyebrow. You also said she'd be useless. Dross looked at Yalara, who didn't stop sweeping. Looks like I was wrong, he mumbled and walked off. When the door shut behind him, Yalara turned to Micah. Why did you do it? He shrugged. I didn't think. I just moved. She stared. You could have died. He looked at her, so gently. I couldn't let anything happen to you, or the boy. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked over and sat beside him. She reached out and touched his bandaged hand, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. And in that moment, Micah realized. She no longer looked at him with fear. She looked at him like he mattered, and maybe that meant everything. That meant the machines were silent, the tools untouched. Micah hadn't moved much since the injury. His arm stayed in a sling, stiff and painful. His steps were slower. The fire in his work had dimmed. But the shop was alive. Because Yalara had taken charge. Each morning, she swept the floor before the suns rose. She wiped every tool, even the ones she didn't know how to use. She organized parts by color, size, and energy class. Customers came, saw her at the front desk and hesitated, until she smiled, until they realized she knew the parts better than they did, until she handed them their fixed items, and they left more impressed than confused. Micah sat near the back wall, watching all of it with quiet surprise. Yalara didn't just keep the shop running. She was transforming it. She installed a new energy panel. She fixed the leaky roof with leftover wiring mesh. She used her alien skills to make the old charging station 20% more efficient. Even Lem, her small son, helped, stacking empty boxes and pretending to be the little boss. When Micah tried to get up one afternoon to help, she put a hand on his chest. You rest, she said. I'll take care of it. He tried to argue. She didn't listen. So he sat back and smiled. Word spread. The widow girl rebuilt that human's shop. She saved his business. She fixed the power unit nobody else could. People who once mocked her now waited in line. They asked questions. They brought extra work. Some even left tips. One day, Dross, the shopkeeper who once laughed at her, walked in with a broken fuel stabilizer. He placed it on the counter and cleared his throat. I heard you're good, he muttered. Yalara didn't gloat. She only said, leave it here. I'll have it done by tomorrow. He looked uncomfortable. Don't break it worse. She smiled kindly. I'll fix it better than it was. He left without another word. Micah leaned over and whispered, that was the nicest he's ever been. Later that evening, as Lem napped in the back, Yalara brought tea to Micah's desk. They sat quietly for a while, sipping in peace. Micah finally said, I owe you a lot. She shook her head. You gave me a job, a place, safety. I'm just returning what you gave. He looked at her. No. You did more. She turned toward him. His voice was softer now. This place, it's better because of you, not just running. Better. Yalara didn't know what to say, so he said it for her. You're not my helper anymore. She blinked. What? Micah stood slowly with some pain in his shoulder and pulled open a drawer. He placed a new ID card in her hands. It read, Yalara, co-owner, Micah's Mechanics. Her mouth fell open slightly. I don't understand. Micah smiled. You've earned it. You're not working for me anymore. You're working with me. Tears filled her eyes. She wiped them quickly. Lem, half asleep in the corner, called softly, Mama? She stood, lifted him, and hugged him tight. Then she looked back at Micah and whispered, This is the first time I've felt like I belong somewhere. Micah looked at her holding her child, strong, steady, proud. And he realized something. She wasn't just rebuilding the shop. She was rebuilding him. The shop was brighter than ever. New signs, organized shelves. Customers from 2 districts away now lined up outside. And behind the counter stood Yalara, not just with tools, but with confidence. She greeted each customer with calm words and expert knowledge. Micah, still healing, handled the designs and tech logs from the back. Together they made the shop stronger than it had ever been. But not everyone was happy about it. One afternoon, a tall man in a black uniform entered the shop. His silver badge flashed under the lights. Colony enforcement officer. 2 others followed behind him, holding tablets and scanning devices. Yalara paused. Her hands froze on the console. She had seen men like these before. They didn't come to fix things. They came to break lives. Micah walked out from the back, wiping his hands. Can I help you? The officer spoke sharply. We're here to review a complaint about your employee. She's not an employee, Micah said quickly. She's my co-owner. The officer raised an eyebrow. She's also an undocumented alien. Yalara stepped forward, keeping Lem behind her. I live here, she said quietly. I work here. I'm not hiding. That may be, the officer replied coldly. But you are not registered. According to records, you do not exist in this colony. That's a violation. Micah frowned. She's not a threat. She's a contributor. She's an illegal presence. You're housing her. That puts your shop license at risk. Yalara's chest tightened. She looked at Micah. His eyes didn't move, didn't blink, didn't back down. Then the officer said it. Remove her, or we shut this place down. The shop went silent. Customers outside slowly stepped away, pretending not to see. One by one, they turned their backs, just like before. Micah slowly walked to the front counter, then turned to the officer. His voice was calm, clear, strong. No, the officer blinked. What did you say? I said no, Micah repeated. I'm not removing her. You'll lose your license. Then I'll lose it. Micah pointed behind him. She saved this place. She fixed it. She kept it alive when I couldn't lift a tool. You think I'm letting her go? You can shut down the shop, take the tools, find me, but she's staying. Yalara's hands trembled. Not from fear, from shock, from the power of someone finally standing for her, not just beside her. The officer sighed. We'll file this. You'll be summoned to a tribunal. Do it, Micah said. We'll be back. I'll be waiting. The officers left. The door hissed shut. Micah turned to Yalara. She stared at him, then whispered, You could have lost everything. He looked into her eyes and said, Everything I care about was standing right here. That night, the lights in the shop stayed dim. They ate quietly. Lem played with a gear spinner Micah had built for him, and Yalara sat in the corner, silent for a long time. Then finally she looked up. I thought I'd spend my whole life hiding. Micah watched her. "You don't have to anymore," she whispered. "Why do you keep fighting for me?" He replied simply, "Because you'd do the same." And in that moment she knew. He wasn't just the man who gave her a job. He wasn't just the man who saved her son. He was the man who gave her back her voice. The tribunal chamber was packed. Officials in long robes sat at the front, eyes cold, screens glowing with law codes. Citizens filled the side seats, some out of curiosity, some out of hate, and a few out of quiet support. Yalara stood in the center, her child Lem held close. Her heart beat like a drum, but she didn't tremble. Not today. She wasn't alone. Beside her stood Micah, chin high, hands calm. He didn't wear a suit. He wore his work jacket, grease-stained, real, just like his words. A woman in blue robes spoke. "State your defense. Why should this unregistered alien remain?" Micah stepped forward. "I'll tell you why." He didn't read from a datapad. He didn't quote law, he told a story. She stood in the dust holding a child. Everyone else turned away. "I didn't. I gave her one chance." He pointed at Yalara. "She didn't just take it. She gave more back than I ever expected." He spoke of how she learned, worked, fixed, protected, and rebuilt everything. He spoke of her honesty, her loyalty, her dignity. "She's not a problem," he said clearly. "She's the best thing this shop and this colony ever had." He stepped closer to the council table. "And if you say she doesn't belong here, then neither do I." The room stirred. Even the coldest judge leaned back in surprise. The ruling was delayed. 3 full days passed. Yalara kept working. Lem kept laughing. Micah kept standing beside her. And finally, the council sent a message. Application for local identity approved. Co-ownership license confirmed. Residency rights granted. No further action required. Micah read the message aloud. Yalara didn't speak. She just dropped to her knees. Tears spilled down her face. Lem crawled into her arms, smiling. She held him tight and whispered to the sky, "We're not shadows anymore." Weeks passed. The shop didn't just survive, it grew. People returned. Some apologized, some didn't. But no one dared look at Yalara the same way again. Now when she walked through the market, heads nodded with respect. Vendors greeted her by name. Children waved. She was no longer the alien widow. She was Madame Yalara, co-owner of the finest tech shop in the district. One afternoon, Micah returned from a delivery. He found her behind the counter, sorting inventory, humming a lullaby. Lem was asleep in the back room. Micah leaned on the door. "You're humming," he said. She looked up, smiled. "It helps me think." "Happy thoughts?" She nodded. "For the first time in my life." "Yes." He walked over, handed her a small silver plate. "What's this?" "A gift." She opened it. Inside was a metal badge engraved with 2 names, Micah and Yalara, fixers of machines and miracles. She stared at it, speechless. Micah said softly, "I figured it was time we made it official." She blinked. "You mean, I don't want a partner who's half in. I want a family. One I choose." Yalara didn't answer. She stepped forward, wrapped her arms around him and whispered against his chest, "Then I choose you too." And from that day forward, the woman who once begged for a job, who once stood in the dust with a sick child, became the heart of a thriving home. Not because someone saved her, but because someone believed in her and she rose.